we're watching it.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Carlos Cruz, Travel News of Carlos Cruz, Dragon Pictures Pro on TikTok. And right now I'm speaking with Raquel. And for your name?
Luz.
Luz, Luz. All right. It is really great having you here. I know that Raquel, you were at my door and I answered it without actually physically being there. Yeah, sorry about that, but I'm glad I get a chance to keep up with you because it's good to have different perspective and different communities, and also to talk about why people campaign we do. So you guys are campaigning for Warnock, right?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So why is the vote for Warnock so important?
Well, I'm here in Atlanta I came from Arizona to be here.
Oh
And
wow.
yeah, I mean, I'm just, I'm a working class woman and a mom and a grandma, but I was fighting in Arizona to keep these to keep the election deniers and these extreme ultra right people out of, in our state, the three positions, for example, that manage the elections in Arizona all had candidates that had fairly strong followings for managing the elections there. And then we also had, of course, our Senator Mark Kelly, who was being opposed by Blake Masters, who's another election denier, these extremists that are just really ultra right. So we were pretty frightened in Arizona during the regular elections, and we just worked our tails off with so many people. Luz was in Arizona, all these.
In Nevada.
Oh, you were in Nevada, right? But there was a bunch of people that are here now that were in Arizona first. So then we came here. I always, I started trying to give small donations. It's all I could afford to a couple of other key races in the country very, very recently in the last few elections. And Warnock was one of them, of course. And so was Stacey Abrams. But then when I found out that they needed some support here in Georgia on the ground, we got the opportunity to come with Unite Here and Worker Power.
Right. So speaking of campaigning in Georgia, and of course, Stacey Abrams lost. I'm not putting my personal 2 cents in any of it. I'm a reporter, so I'm neutral. So I was looking at the data, and it was showing that Stacey Abrams had lost some support from black males, and also it looks like more. Some black people starting to move more Republican and more independent. And if that's the case for Abrams, why is that? Because they couldn't connect with Abrams, or is it just think they're just kind of frustrated at the establishment of, okay, you know what, I am Hispanic, I'm black, so don't tell me how to vote, so I have to vote for Democrat. What do you think about that?
I'm not quite sure that that's totally correct. And I think Stacey Abrams should be given credit for creating the system that is allowing all of the movement. You should see, well, maybe send you pictures of how diverse the community was here today. So I'm not sure I'm ready to agree about this division between the people who support Stacey and the people who are supporting Reverend Warnock. And I can tell you why I am here. I think I have a long list of reasons, but I'm just going to highlight a few. I think that one of them is the judiciary is very important. We know what the Supreme Court just did not too long ago, getting rid of Roe versus Wade. And I think we need judges that are going to respect the law. They don't necessarily have to be Democrats, but judges who are going to respect the law and precedent and make sure that we have a good judiciary. The other reason for me is that I think for older people, for working class people, even though the Democrats are not perfect or close to being perfect, I think that they will be able to do a little bit more, even though it's still going to be gridlocked because the House is going to be Republican, but they will be able to do a little bit more with Reverend Warnock as a senator, and the numbers are really fairly good right now.
Yeah, we're looking right now at MSNBC. It's 55.5% for Warnock right now, 44.5 Walker. So that's more of a spread than we were worried that it might be much less spread. Just to give you an update.
Right. So you guys must be really, really excited about that.
Yeah.
Um, and so I've been talking with truck drivers, and they're telling me to ask more deeper questions in
Hmm.
regards. They want to know because this gas is so expensive. One guy, he sent me his note. He says, "I'm a truck driver. I vote Democrat my whole life, but I was really frustrated when our President Joe Biden. I have respect for him, but he put in executive orders restricting drilling." And that caused the gas price to go up, and it's really hard to feed my family because we had to pass the costs on to the food companies. And he said that excuse me, I won't say his name because he wants to be,
Hmm.
doesn't
Hmm.
want to be slight. The executive orders put in place by gas companies not allowed for drilling company, which caused us to buy gas from overseas, but we have enough drilling sites and refineries that were shut down by executive order from Alaska to New York. Will not help to fight that because it's very important for him and his family because he yeah. So I won't go too much into that. The other
Right.
stuff is yeah.
Maybe I think Grandma, you can answer that. Because we're all I'm actually from California, and the gas there is doubly as expensive as it is here, and it hurts. It hurts when I go to get my car filled up with gas and I'm paying $60. But I realize that it's not Joe Biden who caused the problem. It's a worldwide problem. And I think that one thing we do need to think about is um, environment, how the production of gas and drilling could actually injure the environment. So sometimes the decisions can be really, really difficult. But I think in this case, the gasoline prices have more to do what's going on in the international markets and not so much the drilling. I think that there's a lot of drilling going on throughout the
Yeah.
country. I'm not really sure what area he's talking about, but even in
Yeah.
California, there's actually going on.
But also there's exorbitant profiteering. I mean, the gas and oil companies are declaring, record profits right now. I mean, that's one of the
Hmm.
things that Warnock is definitely involved in, is
Yeah.
trying to reel that in somewhat. I mean, make a profit,
Right.
but for God's sake, don't exploit people in a time that's so difficult. Not to mention that he's been fighting, on the gas taxes. But these
Yeah.
companies do their fair share, and I don't think these prices even need to be that high. But I mean, it is a really tough situation because I hear what your listener is saying. I mean, that it's affecting people's families. We've got to figure out what we can do, because the other question is, in the long run, what is the big cost of what our environment is suffering in the long run? Are we maybe people still believe for some reason that it's not true about climate change, but we got to
Hmm.
figure something out, and it is going to hurt all of us to some degree. I don't think but yeah, I agree
Right.
with Lewis. It's a lot of different
Yeah.
complicated issues. We definitely need those companies not to be,
Yeah.
exploiting the situation.
Right. Is it since the executive orders put those restrictions in place for refining and drilling executives from Exxon and some other ones. So their defense is that, well, if you don't allow us to do what we're used to doing, um, they're still going the same business model. They said, to give example of Microsoft, they're still going to do what a business does, because a business has to take care of itself, of course, and take care of its point. But that one of the executives from Exxon was said, if they just go back on those executive orders to allow them to drill, so we don't have to purchase gas from other countries, because um, if they put it, we have enough gas to actually do it, but their hands are tied legally by executive orders, and they're sort of kind of like a witch hunt against them. What's they've been doing for many
Yeah,
years, whether it be Democrat or
we might have a
or
different
Republican
viewpoint on that,
administration.
Carlos. We
Yeah.
might just
Oh
have a
no, it's
different
not my
viewpoint.
viewpoint.
Yeah.
Definitely, I'm
No,
not giving
I
mine,
know.
but yeah,
I don't
yeah,
mean
yeah,
yours, but I just mean
yeah.
I think the gas and oil companies, you and I would be shocked at how much money they spend on their public relations and how they come up with these narratives to try to avoid what their own responsibility is. And not that they don't have like issues like any business does, but what are the responsibilities of a business? You know, yeah, they are supposed to make a profit. How much profit and how do they operate? How they need to tighten up their own act too. And I think we really have a lot of concerns, and especially when you think also about indigenous struggles around where these pipelines get run, and the environmental racism related to where they push through some of these things because they can get away with it in poor and communities of color. There's a lot of complicated things there, and we certainly aren't at the verge of transferring over to different alternative forms of energy, but we've all got to do our piece, and it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. It's just how much is it going to hurt the little, your friend, the trucker, and you and I. These companies need to take more responsibility, not just gouging these profits out at a time when we all need to kind of put our shoulder forward to come up with some alternatives. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And so for what are some key points that people should know about Warnock that should get everyone, excited and sort of on board?
Sure. Yeah, I guess I'll start with a few. Luz already mentioned one. I don't think it's at all tolerable. I think that most of us realize it's completely intolerable to accept this judicial edict of women not having rights to control their own bodies. We're framing the question about abortion, or it's being framed in ways that are missing the point, which is that as long as we don't have substantial and accessible health care for all women, then and family planning and all of these things, then abortion gets framed as this frivolous type of a thing, and it can't be seen that way. It's impossible for us to let that be the way they frame the reproductive rights that we have. The other thing here is that the fight for voting rights. I mean, my God, if you look on the news about what these folks that we've been talking to, that there was this record turnout for early voting this time, and part of it was because people are pissed off. They're like, how dare you try to restrict our voting rights, cutting down the number of polls available so people have to stand in line. I spoke with a woman who texted me 3 times that she had gone trying to vote, but she doesn't have an official disability, but she's got a recent surgery on her ankle, so she had to go home because she couldn't stand in line, and she didn't even standing in those lines. So Warnock is the only option for protecting, what people fought so many decades for with blood, sweat, and tears, and lives. So I feel like in these times when we're learning so much, this new movie out, Till, about Emmett Till, there's all these things coming out about Fred Hampton. We have to stand strong and not allow this ultra right movement to erase things that people spent every shoe leather and everything to get us. So Herschel Walker is the opposite of that. Herschel Walker is a puppet for Trump and Trump's agenda, unfortunately, and he might have been a fine football player, but I think looks pretty damaged, and he's there to perform a duty as a black
Right.
man, a black candidate opposing.
But I just want to add like one little point of for us in terms of the healthcare, and very specific. Reverend Warnock actually supported the bill that is going to significantly lower the price of insulin.
Okay.
Up, right? And that is really significant and important because, as you know, many of our Latino, Hispanic community, Latinx community, we are, diabetes is a big issue. the cost of insulin is very high. And that's just like one concrete example. And yes, because the House is going to be run by the Republicans, it's going to be difficult to get things passed. But I think we will have a much better opportunity to get good things that will bring better health care and perhaps money resolutions for people that we wouldn't get otherwise.
Right. And I appreciate that. And so I was speaking with a lot of Cuban.
I haven't seen her, but a voter told me at the door yesterday. She was a Republican, and she said that she didn't like she doesn't like Herschel Walker, and then she said she doesn't like Biden, but she said the one thing she loved about what Biden did was the help for people against the evictions that were going on, and affordable housing, and she recognized that. And I think there's a lot of working class Republicans that are seeing some of these things, including that child tax credit. They're seeing what that means to have that support from the Democratic policies.
Right.
They're
So,
going to try to get it passed again, just to clarify, because the child tax credit, unfortunately, was not extended because of the Republicans.
Oh, so I've been also speaking with a lot of Cuban Americans, and they vote for more on the right. And I know you mentioned that Herschel is a black man voting for the right, and I'm speaking with some blacks, and so they seem to feel like there's a trend where if they vote for the right, they are ostracized by the black community and Hispanic communities because they're doing so. And one of the things is the argument is that, well, isn't this America? Can we vote for whoever we want? Why is it if it's a black person or Hispanic person and they vote Republican, they're ostracized? Isn't the beauty of America that we can choose Libertarian, Democrat, or even Independent? And so for the discussion of togetherness and and freedom, why do you think that blacks and Hispanics get ostracized so much when they vote when they're right, when we're in America, freedom of choice, or if it's the black guy he's called Uncle Tom and all that sort of rhetoric?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to talk about Herschel because actually I wanted to focus on Reverend Warnock, but I don't think that. I mean, I think that if we can look at divisions, and I can agree to disagree with someone, and actually I feel that the Cuban Americans actually are the ones who ostracize other people for voting other ways, to be honest. But they're in this country and they can vote and go the way that they want to vote. Many of them, not all of them, right? But we're talking in the stereotypes. That's what he said, right? And so instead of focusing on that division, to be honest, I don't feel that that they get ostracized. I feel that the country is divided with good reason. There's a lot of disagreement on important issues, and I think some of those issues have to do with democracy, the women's rights, economic issues,
very essential values.
So so we can agree to disagree, but I don't think ostracizing is the right.
And there may be I mean, I don't think it's not. I think it's true. They can get a reaction from people because it's difficult to understand for people the actual effects of the Republican policies in the last few decades, and especially this one, have gotten so extreme that it's difficult to understand because the choice to support them, because they seem to be voting against their own long-term interests and of all their people. There seems to be a lot of really good propaganda and narratives being put out with a lot of lies, even just the election fraud, all of that stuff. There's just a lot of really weird propaganda out there. Not that everybody doesn't have their propaganda, but things based in clearly proven lies. And so it's hard to understand. I know that families can be really divided even, about these issues. And it's hard.
Right. If I'm a black business owner, small business owner, and I'm a Christian, is there room for me in the Democrat Party? I like low taxes.
Of course, but the question is, do you like taxes? Do you like low taxes really wealthy people paying less taxes than less percentage than you. I mean, everyone should have the least amount of tax possible, but our taxes also provide something very valuable to business owners and all of us. So the question is whether there's corruption, right? I mean, isn't the question more about corruption? Whether or not these taxes are being fairly levied and used appropriately for all of our benefit, and including small businesses, including working class people. But when you have even billionaires and millionaires admitting that they pay less taxes than their own, administrative assistants, I mean, sometimes the question is not really framed, it's thrown out in the wrong way. It's the wrong question, essentially. So we have to
Right.
back up a little bit on some of these issues that seem divisive too, and see if there's a way to look at them where we can solve the problem from another angle that is just about equitable
Right.
responsibility in that.
Because I was talking to small businesses that moved from California to Texas and New York to Texas, and they could not afford to do business because of the tax structures. Some of them were like under $400,000, and some of them were home based, but the tax structure. But I definitely understand where you come from and go with that. So I guess I'm going back to Warnock. Um, for independent Christian voters, do you think he's a good selling point for them who don't align with, say, LGBTQ and et cetera, and um, other other ideas that they may feel against their own values?
So Carlos he is called Reverend for a reason.
Hmm.
That means he's a Christian.
Yeah.
And he's someone with a long history of being a Christian. And I think that you're saying would someone would support him if they have certain values that are different from his in terms of their Christian beliefs? Maybe, but he is a Christian. Let's not forget that.
And also, I mean, he definitely is about inclusivity. I mean, there's no question about that. Inclusivity is here. So I think for me, again, I'll back out a step and ask this question: what do people vote on? What is most important to them? We're never going to find a candidate that hits all of our points, right? So
Hmm.
if you are still struggling with accepting LGBTQ people in this world, or maybe you have issues where you're trying to figure out what's appropriate. I know there's big controversies about what children get to learn, for example. Maybe you have those issues, but are we going to be moving forward trying to learn about these things? Are we going to pick one issue that we're going to say, because of this, I will never vote for this person, even though they're so good in my interest in so many other ways? I mean, we
Yeah.
really
Right.
have to start making those kind of decisions. Do I need to work? I have a really wonderful quote that I try to remember from an amazing writer named Audre Lorde, who's no longer with us. And she said, it's important for us to learn the difference. It's critical for us to learn the difference between our enemies and our allies with whom we have grave differences, because we
Mm.
have to work and learn from by working together on the things we can agree with. We can possibly process some of these other things and come to new understandings about them, and some kind of harmonies. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Oh.
I just want to say that at least for me, there are some issues that are just right or wrong, and I think the right side of the coin on LGBTQ issues is to respect folk who are LGBTQ, not discriminate against them, and not harass or hassle them, as has been happening in a lot of states. So I do believe that at some level, there are maybe some issues that, hey, we're not going to be able to convince you. I think that's one of those issues, to be honest, because there is a right side and a wrong side on that one, and I think he's on the right side of that
And
one.
we have some similar histories to think about. Look back in history of times when different people for who they were not accepted and were ostracized. And how long did it take for us to come to understand that this was absolutely incorrect? I mean, we're still, we haven't all come to understand that, have we? So,
Right.
it's a process. Yeah.
Okay, so now switching gears, I'm going to talk to
Yeah, we
you
got a few
in
more minutes.
Spanish.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, I
Yeah,
have to leave too. Sorry.
yeah. I'm gonna switch gears and talk to you in Spanish for maybe about 3 minutes. To
Okay.
get that out there. I
Mm.
totally forgot about the time,
Está bien,
and so
sí, también.
yeah.
Ujú.
Okay, bueno. Muy buenas noches y bienvenido a Travel News con Carlos Cruz. Y estoy hablando con Raquel y disculpe, ¿cómo se llama su nombre otra vez?
Luz.
Luz,
No
Luz, bueno,
como la
Luz.
luz.
Bueno, y por la gente que viven en Georgia, los hispanos que viven en Georgia, ¿por qué tengo que votar por señor Warnock?
Pues ya votamos.
Ya votamos.
Pero
No,
sí.
no, la pregunta, sí entiendo, no es tener, pero ¿por qué debemos? La razón para mí como colombiana, como mujer latina, como persona que trabaja, porque él va a trabajar para nuestras familias, él va a trabajar para que la economía mejore y él va a trabajar para que la democracia siga existiendo en este país, especialmente en Georgia. Solamente 3 puntos y tengo muchos más.
Particularmente los derechos de votar y las condiciones mejores para poder votar fácilmente, libremente. Ha sido muy restringido aquí en Georgia desde su primera elección, ¿no? Cambiaron muchas de las leyes de votación aquí y tenemos que volver a eso. Y yo también porque él apoya bastante los trabajadores, las trabajadoras, ¿no? Las familias trabajadoras porque para mejorar las condiciones, él apoya a los sindicatos y todos, también a los, ¿cómo se dice? Small business owners, you know?
Comerciantes.
Comerciantes y para poder negociar en cómo van a seguir adelante todos. La otra cosa es en la vivienda afordable está muy involucrado en tratar de desarrollar política de poder proveer más vivienda afordable para la gente trabajadora y eso. Y también por los derechos de las mujeres, muy importante, ¿no? Todos estos temas son muy distintos de los políticos de su oponente, ¿no?
Sí, estoy aquí en Colombia y yo escuché que por noticiero que el presidente de Colombia ahora está pidiendo apoyar sobre la gente que está ilegalmente en Estados Unidos y ahora
¿Legalmente qué?
personas que no tienen papeles, que son colombianos, está ahí en Estados Unidos ahora, parece en los últimos 2 años.
Ujú.
Y él está pidiendo de apoyar del señor Biden, que por favor se manda visa por nuestra gente allá en Estados Unidos porque Colombia y Estados Unidos tienen una relación larguísima y son amigos en el mundo por tantos años, siempre apoyan los dos. ¿Y qué tu opinión sobre eso?
Sobre los inmigrantes colombianos, particularmente aquí.
Sí, porque
La conversación, el presidente, o sea que el
presidente
presidente
Petro. Ujú.
está en conversaciones
Con Biden.
con
aquí.
Biden
¿tú
pidiendo
piensas que Biden vas a apoyar a nuestra gente allá, colombianos que viven en los Estados Unidos, sobre estos derechos?
el problema no es Biden, el problema es que cualquier ley o cualquier programa relacionado a inmigrantes va a ser muy difícil ahora, por lo que la casa va a estar en las manos republicanas. O sea que no sé, tal vez si se pueda un programa parecido al que le han dado a los venezolanos. La situación en Venezuela, de acuerdo como lo ve este país, es
Sí.
diferente a como existe en Colombia. O sea que, no sé, pero el problema más grande para los inmigrantes son los republicanos en este momento.
Sí, pues
Ok.
yo digo que el Biden también tiene que aprender mejor también, porque él ha estado usando ese título 42.
42. No, pero,
Pero
no, pero eso
sí.
fue porque la corte lo forzó.
Ah, pues bueno, no
Mm,
supe eso. Pero yo diré que en el tema de amigos o la amistad entre los Estados Unidos y Colombia, eso sí es un tema muy duro, muy difícil para mí porque siendo colombianos aquí, yo en la última década, digamos, yo he aprendido bastante de la historia, de las políticas encima de la mesa y debajo de la mesa de los Estados Unidos y yo creo que los Estados Unidos no ha sido tan buen amigo a Colombia y ojalá eso
mm,
se va cambiando porque parece que hay unos programas, el Plan Colombia, que eso ya sabemos que desafortunadamente causó bastante sufrimiento en Colombia, aunque en el nombre de apoyar a los negocios multinacionales o la economía pero más de los élites, yo diría. Eso sí es un tema muy complicado, pero yo sí tengo esperanza y yo digo porque yo también, yo viajo también a Colombia bastante con delegaciones de apoyo en derechos humanos, varias cosas en Bogotá, en Cali, en varios lugares allá. Y por eso queremos Warnock, porque necesitamos un Senado aquí posiblemente puede entender mejor, tal vez están dispuestos o disponibles o digamos que les gustaría mandar sus asistentes para aprender, mejor dicho, de la situación en Colombia, porque sí se tiene que cambiar ese política que tenemos una historia bien difícil desde los años, bueno, 50 y 60, ¿no? O atrás. Hay que apoyar al acuerdo de paz. Yo no sé si Biden va a estar ahí o no, pero espero que los demócratas sí van a empezar a entender de qué se trata ese acuerdo y que es no solamente para Colombia, pero para el mundo.
Sí.
Un ejemplo increíble que han escrito en ese acuerdo de paz. Y tiene la posibilidad de sobresalir de varias maneras muy fuertes y muy lindos para digamos, un modelo para el mundo, yo creo. Ojalá vamos
bueno,
a enseñarles aquí también de eso.
Carlos, yo me tengo que disculpar
Sí.
porque tengo que ir a hacer unas reservaciones, pero muchas gracias por la entrevista y gracias por todo.
sí,
Si tienes más preguntas, yo creo que Raquel
Sí,
está
pues
disponible.
sí, otro minutico sí tengo, pero sí. Pero
bueno,
ha sido un placer.
sí,
Bueno, gracias, Luis.
muchas gracias. Y por los colombianos que están en Georgia ¿qué página que puede ir sobre información políticamente, porque su voto, o sobre Warnock?
Una página, a ver. Yo no sé qué, ¿tú tienes una sugerencia de eso? ¿Una página de web para mirar más informe bueno, sus páginas de sus políticas, de su plataforma?
Con el nombre de Warnock.
Con el nombre de Warnock, seguramente, yo no lo tengo aquí mismo porque ya acabamos de salir de los
Oh,
barrios
yeah.
y ya
Bueno,
vamos a una reunión donde están mirando los resultados que están
okay,
saliendo.
okay, okay.
Ahora dicen, está baja, muy más acerca, mira que ya está en 50.8% y 49.2 en este momento. Pero no sé cuánto han contado, 57% contado de los votos. Tú sabes, esto es cerquísimo el voto. Vamos a ver cómo sale, porque es una situación muy aguda, ¿no?
Sí.
Realmente.
Y por la gente que está en Colombia, nosotros estamos hablando de la cosa política en un estado en Georgia, en los
Ujú.
Estados Unidos.
En el sur aquí.
Entonces, claro. Entonces, mucho gusto en conocerle. Thank you
Ha
very
sido un
much for having
placer,
me.
Carlos.
Sí, y que
Y
vaya
solo quiero
bien.
decir qué oportunidad de yo allí golpeando en tu puerta aquí en Atlanta, Georgia, y me respondes por la tecnología del ring y luego hacemos este cita para una entrevista, que increíble, ¿no?
Claro que
Me
sí, y
encanta.
muchísimo gusto. Y tú quieres ver mi canal en YouTube, Travel and News with Carlos Cruz. Travel and News with Carlos Cruz.
Bien.
Travel and News with Carlos Cruz. Yo sé, no puedo decir eso en español con ser igual, pero
Sí.
thank you very much. Y usted es muy amable y disculpe y que es mucho tiempo, pero
No,
quiero hacer la
todo
opinión de
bien,
estas cosas.
excelente.
Ya pues,
Excelente. Cuídense bien. Bye bye.
bye bye.